So
If you can hear me, please raise your hand. Can you hear me, Judith? Can anybody hear me? Raise your hand, please. Okay.
And let's have somebody here talk like Judith.
Hello, hello, hello. Good evening.
There you go. We're good.
good job. Thank you. Here we go.
Okay, thank you. Okay, well, the first technical obstacle overcome for the evening, so that seems like a good reason to call the meeting to order. This is March 23rd, 2021. It's a meeting of the Springs City Council. This will be a work session to start off with. Later on, we'll be transitioning to a special
I
session.
can't hear anything. I can tell somebody's talking, but I can't hear a thing.
I can hear too, but it's really,
Impossible.
it's faint.
Unacceptable.
You gotta talk into that microphone harder, I think.
Okay, Julie, can you hear me now? If so,
Barely. Can you talk into the microphone closer, or do we need a different system?
Nope, we got it. Keep going.
I'm 2 inches away.
Well, it sounds like you're underwater and you're in some kind of echo cave.
Okay.
Keep going.
How's this? Is this any better?
By 2%.
Okay, it's not satisfactory.
No, I will have trouble hearing. I mean, I have to guess kind of what the words are based on the sentence. It's
All right. Okay, without further ado, let's get going then. Okay, first off, everybody at home, if you can hear me, please raise your hand. If you can hear me, okay. Okay, it looks like we've got connection. Is that reasonably intelligible? Okay.
Yes,
I'll try to
perfect.
see. Okay. All right, great. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. This is it's a work session, the Manitou Springs City Council for March 23rd, 2021, and later we'll transition to a special session and presumably an executive session. Okay. Would the city clerk please call the roll?
Yes, city council members, Judith Chandler,
Present.
John Shada.
Here.
Julie Wolf,
here. There's an echo. There's an echo after every word you say.
Yeah.
Susan
Yep.
Wolbrook,
Here.
Bremner. He's here. Mayor Pro Tem Nancy Fortune,
Sucks.
here. Okay.
I
And
couldn't
Mayor
hear
John
that.
Gray.
Present.
Is Nancy's microphone on? I couldn't hear her.
Did you hear that, Julie?
Oh, good. I can hear you now. Thank you.
Sorry, we've got a bit of a learning curve here. Okay, but okay, sounds like everybody's here. Let's go ahead. We have 3 discussion items for the work session portion of tonight. The first item is Manitou Springs 2022 Hazard Mitigation Plan update and FEMA grant request. Okay, so we need Karen Beckles for this, please.
Berthold.
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 Good evening, Council and Mayor Graham. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes, Karen.
Excellent. Great. Well, this evening I just have a brief item to present. The City of Manitou Springs has a local hazard mitigation plan that we adopted in July 2017. That was actually almost 4 years ago. And we are proposing to update this plan in 2022. And so to do this, we are going to be applying for a grant, which will require a local match. And so I'd just like to provide some background on that And we'll be bringing the request to you formally on April 6th for your approval. So it's really information tonight and a chance to answer your questions. So council, well, actually to back up, this plan follows FEMA, Federal Emergency Management Agency guidance for doing such a plan. And then council adopted this plan as well. And so we do have a resolution of adoption from council that I attached to the packet. And that did note that council would like to keep the plan current by updating it every 5 years. In addition to really the formal reason for doing that, I would add that we do have ever evolving conditions that affect our hazard risk. And right now we have increased drought and increasing concern about some aspects of our wildfire risk, particularly our reservoir. We also have many new staff and we want to bring them into the process. And we want to update our priorities for hazard mitigation. We've learned a great deal in the last 4 years. This actually is going to be a very active year for addressing our hazards. And so those are all reasons for updating this plan. You may recall that a couple months ago, I think in January, Pikes Peak Region staff came to council and presented the Pikes Peak Region multi-hazard plan. And council prepared a resolution of adoption for that. So really these two plans work together. We do our local hazard mitigation plan because the regional plan is very high level. And with our high level of risk, we want to have very detailed strategies to mitigate our hazards. And so I provided a few attachments that will accompany our grant application, the scope of work for the project, and a letter of financial commitment. So planning department will manage this process, but it's really a collaborative effort across our community and involving many other staff and agencies, as well as our public. We do want to engage a consultant for this effort. It's very specialized work, and thus the grant. We're proposing to a budget of $50,000 to update this plan, and this would be 75-cent federal funding. We would get the grant for that federal contribution, and we would provide a 25% local match that would include both cash and in-kind contribution. We can value our staff and public other professional input as our match. And so we would request an $8,000 cash match from the city, and I've been coordinating with our finance director on that, and that would be included in our 22 budget. We would initiate this plan in early 2022. And so planning staff have worked closely with state staff from the Colorado Department of Homeland Security and Emergency Management. They're very involved with local communities as they go through this process. And they've been great to work with, really have done a lot of the hands-on work. They pulled together that whole template for a budget, if you saw that, which is somewhat complex. So they've been great partners. We will continue to really reinforce integration with our comprehensive plan, Plan Manitou. That's a really integral part of our process. And so we will have recommendations out of this process for integrating better with Plan Manitou. So in terms of fiscal impact, the grant would be a net positive of $42,000 in funding for the city to apply to this plan, and we would request $8,000 as our match. In addition, this process is very involved. We have a very involved community engagement component. And we start by forming a planning team, and that includes staff members, members from critical regional agencies, subject matter experts, and certainly local citizens as well. I would say residents and also business owners. We would want to have several residents, business owners on our planning team, but we would have a clear plan for how we would engage with the community throughout the process. We even have one resident who participated in our 2017 plan and is a subject matter expert, and he fortunately has agreed to join us for this update. So it's also important to acknowledge staff workload for this. That would be heaviest, obviously, for planning department, for our planning director, Christine Lowenberg, and myself. I would be doing really the hands-on management of the grant, which includes meeting federal requirements as well. And then staff time involvement from other staff. So for instance, Public Works would be very involved. We would work with them to really get our baseline data together. We want to understand staff capabilities, who is trained in some of these subject matter areas, what tools and ordinances do we already have in place. And fortunately, we can also rely on the regional plan that was just approved. So that's some current data. That plan was developed through a very similar structure, and so we'll be utilizing data from that plan as well. And so again, the schedule is that we will submit for the grant in early April after bringing this to your regular session on April 6th for approval. We anticipate hiring a consultant, posting a request for proposals in the fall, and then we would formally initiate our process in early 2022. We expect it to be about a year-long process. And so fortunately, I've been through this before. Planning Director Lowenberg is always also very well versed in hazards and hazard mitigation. And so I think we're starting at a higher threshold than we did the last time around when this was our first local hazard mitigation plan. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Karen, tonight we're on kind of a tight schedule. We've targeted an executive session for 7:30. So I see one hand raised out there. Julie, let's give you one question, then I think we need to get on to the next agenda item. Julie?
Thank you. Would you be the Manitou Springs project manager on this then, Karen?
I would be the formal project manager, and Christine would be an alternate.
So when the contract says that the contractor will assist the Manitou Springs project manager with documentation and is responsible for reporting back to you on these various factors or whatever the 4 things were, that would be you?
Correct.
And then you'd also be personally involved with drafting the RFP?
Yes.
And who decides which residents and which business owners will be on this team?
Well, we'll need to figure out a process for that. That's a great question. And I was actually wondering if somebody would bring that up. We haven't gotten to that yet.
I'm just hoping that council can have some input on that so that it's not done behind the scenes. Because
Certainly.
there's so many different factions and we have such a diverse community of thought and so forth. So I'd be interested in that. But I think those are my only questions. And I just have to say, we're so lucky to have you, Karen, that you understand all this stuff. It's just so fabulous that you're helping us with this.
Been a learning process.
Thank you. And council, in the interest of time, I think if you have additional questions, perhaps if you could just go ahead and email Karen and we'll catch up with us later. I would mention that Mr. Parker had arranged for Mr. Churchill and his attorney to be available at 7:30. So in that sense, we'd like to get our work session to get completed. Okay. Yeah, actually, Denise suggested that if you have questions, email them to her and she'll take care of it. Okay, great. Karen, thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Thank you all.
Thank you. Okay. The second item tonight is the Open Space Advisory Committee. They're going to give us an update presentation. I believe Nancy Wilson is going to be presenting. Okay, Nancy, can you hear us?
I can. Thank you, John. And I think
Good, we
Mike,
can-
I think Mike Mayo should probably be out there too, if you can bring him
Okay.
over.
Yeah, Judy, can you bring Mike Mayo over?
There he is.
Okay.
Okay, I'll go
council-
ahead and get started. And I'm not sure about your virtual format either. Do you want, are slides going to come up? Is Judy going to bring up slides, or are you going to look at your packets, or how are we doing this?
Judy, the intent here is for Judy to display the slides for her
Okay.
machine.
Okay, well, while that's happening, let me say good evening. We're really happy to be here, and Mike and I will tag team a little bit on this. But before we get to our slide, how OSAC works. So we talk about land acquisition, trails, trail maintenance, those kinds of things all year long, amongst a bunch of other things that come up for us. So that by the time it's budget time in the late fall, we have a pretty good idea. We are planning on what our projects will be for the following year. But then we've always postponed prioritizing those projects until our retreat in January. And the reason for that is timing. For example, we almost every year apply for a GOCO grant. We don't hear about that grant until mid-December. So that makes a big difference in how we plan the upcoming year, knowing whether we'll have those grant funds and work crews. The same goes for Manitou Cats and Volunteers for Outdoor Colorado. A lot of these organizations don't plan their projects until winter time, basically. So for us, not knowing what crews will get when, it's hard for us to prioritize earlier than that. We had a great meeting with Denise and Christine last week, and we're going to try to do more prioritizing earlier so that you'll see that during our budget meetings in the fall. So that's kind of how we've operated in the past. I don't see any slides. Do you see slides?
We're working on it.
Okay. Well, the slides that you're gonna see, let me see, maybe I'll bring them up for myself here. We're doing that.
Nancy, Judy's bringing them up. I think we've got it now.
Oh, okay. There we go. Okay.
Okay, great.
So we can, the only thing I want to point out on this side. So these slides are basically slides that were part of our budget presentation, but we're going to give you a little update. And then we've got another thing we want to talk about. So the only thing I'd point out here is for those of you who are new to council, POST, the POST plan, POST stands for Parks, Open Space, and Trails. So, and you know our primary purpose is to plan, purchase, and maintain open space and trails. And by the way, trails is a relatively new addition to our plate several years ago. And we are not dependent on city funds for operations. It's a special fund. Right now, it's been approved by the voters till 2032. And I'll point out once again that we really have to think strategically when it comes to budget and planning. Next slide. Thanks. Okay, so I'm going to have Mike talk about some of these easements and purchases first.
Thank you, Nancy, and thank you, council. We have several easements and prospective acquisitions targeted for the coming year. First of which appears on your list. Last year, we were tasked with obtaining a conservation easement that was offered by Kevin Daly McGrew. Many of you know Kevin, and she had several parcels located at the base of Redstone Castle. She was interested in creating a conservation easement. Our strategy initially with Kevin was to offer a purchase. However, she decided to retain ownership of those parcels and instead grant conservation easements. We have a completed document, which I understand is now in the process of being recorded by our planning department. We also have other parcels that were targeted through tax sale. Several delinquent parcels are located throughout our entire city, some of which have high value in terms of our open space and our goals to expand our open space areas. Those parcels appear under line 2. We have an intermediary party who acquires those parcels on behalf of the city. Those parcels have been obtained by the buyer, and at some point hopefully over the next coming months, we'll be transferring those parcels to the city at cost, at the seller's cost. We don't have a set purchase price yet. A lot depends on payment of taxes and other miscellaneous expenses associated with the transfer of those parcels to the city. We also have, let's see here. Well, I guess we could talk a little bit about Black Canyon Open Space. The city acquired the Black Canyon Open Space in 2016. It was a 33-acre acquisition at the time. We're in the process of not only conducting a cultural assessment of the property, but also we're involved in the planning stages. We have an opportunity to hook that open space parcel into the Waldo Canyon complex of trails being proposed by the city of Colorado Springs. We were approached by Colorado Springs to become a part of that complex of trails. And we see a wonderful opportunity to connect with the Waldo Canyon project. For those of you who are not aware of the situation or the background, the tracts of land that were acquired by the city of Colorado Springs were formerly owned by Castle Concrete. There were 4 parcels owned by Castle Concrete, and the city of Colorado Springs negotiated and concluded the transfer of those parcels to the city, I guess within the last couple of months or so. We've been in discussions with the city of Colorado Springs. We see an opportunity to connect up with those parcels by way of a 60-foot wide driveway easement that extends from the dirt and gravel road known as Black Canyon Road. Black Canyon Road is located roughly in the vicinity of the security gate for Cedar Heights, and some of you are familiar with that territory. We also have an opportunity to acquire a second parcel, a 4.5-acre parcel owned by Westside LLC. Westside LLC's parcel is located immediately to the east of our Black Canyon open space. It's a wonderful opportunity for the city to expand its Black Canyon open space area. And in addition, that parcel, that proposed acquisition, provides us with good physical access from our Black Canyon open space to the asphalted portion of Black Canyon Road. We're in the process of negotiating either a donation or a purchase of that parcel from the current owner.
Okay, Mike, I'm going to interrupt you because we have 11 minutes left.
Go ahead, Nancy. You're back here.
And I'm going to go through this pretty quickly.
Go ahead.
So, and because we want to have time for questions in the end. So Intamin Trail reroute, those of you who hike the Intamin have seen that. That's the trail reroute around there. That's been complete. Our trail signage was completed this winter, all installed. I hope you've had a chance to look at them. They're at 6 major trailheads, and we came in very close to budget on that project. The Iron Mountain Management Plan will be complete and presented at our next meeting. Next slide. Yep, okay. Closed a rogue trail, or some people call them social trails, at the bottom of Iron Mountain Trail there on Crystal Park Road that was being badly eroded by bicycles. And we just discovered at our last meeting, we now have another problem over there that we need to deal with, but we have to deal with some, with a survey and finding out exactly where our easement is there before we go in and start to try to fix that situation. Intamin Trail washouts, that's ongoing. We're working on that all the time, but Shanti and the Manitou Trail Cats did a tremendous job in starting to fix the major washouts there. We have now a complete database of all of our trails and improvements needed on all of our trails. And that's a huge step forward for OSAC in the last couple of years. One of our members has put together that database, and then members of the committee have divided up all the trails and surveyed them themselves. There's another easement in there that's been recorded on the Red Mountain property. Mike can speak to that if we need to later. And also on Eagle Mountain easements.
Just briefly, Nancy, we recorded temporary trail easements. Each of those easements are 3-year terms, and we acquired those easements from both the Manitou Pikes Peak Cog Railway, as well as Red Cliff Properties, which is an ownership group controlled by Bill Kerner.
Great. And then this GOCO Youth Corps grant for $25,000. We have gotten the results. We were awarded that grant. And so we will have 3 weeks of a trail crew working next summer and fall. Okay, next slide. Maybe. You know what? The next slide is just oh, there we go. Okay, so this was objectives for the coming year, and you'll see that we have 5 of them there. There were 6 of them there, and that's kind of the most recent iteration, I would say, although those things change for us all the time. It can be a weather event like flooding or a major downpour that wipes out a trail. It can be users who suddenly decide that it's a good idea to put a social trail in and starts tromping through the woods. There are any number of things that change our priorities as we go through the year. But what I wanted to point out here is that for every priority here, you'll see a list of goals or goal that relates directly to the post plan. Lately, there have been some accusations, and it's been difficult for us, quite frankly, not to respond to them, that the OSAC committee isn't paying attention to the post plan. I want to assure you that the post plan is our Bible, and this is just one indication. We don't put something on our priority list until we know that we can name the goals in the post plan that we're addressing with that priority. So you have there, we're working now on management plans for all the small, discrete open spaces that we have in the city that Michael referred to. We have ongoing maintenance on the Intamin Trail. The Intamin Trail, bless their hearts, they built a great trail that we all use all the time. But in many areas, it's not a sustainable trail. And one of our goals is to bring all of our trails up to sustainable standards. You may know that the trails, the stairs, the railroad tie stairs, that area of the trail has been closed and rerouted. But one of the things that we will do next summer is to rehab that area and hopefully put it back the way it was long before those stairs were put in. Mike mentioned the Black Canyon connection to the Waldo complex, and we're not going to talk about that right now. Creek Walk is coming way up on our radar with the RFP that was just let for sections 4 and 5 of the Creek Walk Trail. So that's going to take more time, already has this year. And finally, we have ongoing committee training. So that's it.
That's correct. And that management plan you see there involving various parcels involves 58 separate parcels that are identified by the planning department. We hope to create an overall management plan with respect to each one of those 58 parcels described in that management plan.
Yep. Great.
We have,
So,
we have,
yes.
we have other high value parcels, but given the limited time, we can either address those at this point or entertain questions.
So finally, I wanted to, if there are no questions on the last slide, which is where we left you, where we were at the end of last year. Our recent balance, the last thing I saw from Becca is we have about 299,000 in the bank right now. I got a question about, why the total of the projects we just showed you don't equal the total of the budget here. This isn't a budget meeting, and we're more than happy to have a meeting that just focuses on our budget. These are just kind of our project budget. So for example, we have a $105,000 line item for land acquisition. We have a $60,000 line item for debt service of Iron Mountain. We have $7,000 in administrative support every year, $9,000 in noxious weed mitigation, et cetera, et cetera. So what you're seeing here in the list, the money you saw in the last 3 slides is just part of what our total budget is for the year, if that makes any sense. And now I'd like to take a few minutes to address, I'll call it the elephant in the room. I know you all have gotten letters and emails and have seen in the local press some feedback on Sheep Mountain. And it's been painful for us not to reply for some of us on the committee. And so I'd like to do that now. And the first thing I want to do is assure you all that we are for trails. That's what we do. I spent the last 5 years of my career building trails. And so we're not anti-trail by any stretch of the imagination. But our job is actually acquisition and preservation of open space, number one. And that says, nothing of trails, trail maintenance, and that kind of thing. But that's what the original ordinance was passed for. And our job really now has become to balance the need for recreation with the need for preserving the natural environment. And that includes wildlife habitat and forest management, weed management, fire risk, all those kinds of things that kind of go along with preserving the environment in general. If you read the post plan, and I know you all have a link to the post plan in your packet tonight, but rather than have you thumb through that, I just want to point out a couple of things real quickly. And if I can screen share, looks like I can. I want to show you, so that the Sheep Mountain Trail is actually mentioned only twice in the post plan, once on page 8 and once on page 112. And both times it's mentioned in the plan, you can see that it's in the context of a whole lot of other trails. So in this case, it says construct loop trail around Manitou Springs with multiple access points, a ring Manitou Springs trail. And that's something that's certainly on our radar and that we're always looking for acquisition, easements, those kinds of things that could make this dream of a trail around Manitou Springs a reality. But you can see here, this is the first place in the plan where Sheep Mountain is mentioned. And in this context, actually, it doesn't make any sense because Sheep Mountain was going to be a spur, an out and back trail. So here it's kind of a catch-all along with every other trail that people ever brought up in local meetings and that kind of thing about trails. So there it is on page 8. And it appears once again on page 112. Let me see if I can share this. Oops. Let's see, can you see that? Can you see that? No. Let's see. I think I did that wrong. Let me try that again. Here it is again on page 112. This time, under trail systems recommendations, it's saying advocate and collaborate with adjacent jurisdictions to connect Manitou Springs trail systems. And once again, in this long list, you see Sheep Mountain mentioned. So that's number 2. And the only other place you will see Sheep Mountain referred to in 150 pages is there's a map. And if I can share the map, there are actually a few maps in the post plan, but this happens to be, no, let me try that again. I don't know why it doesn't want to come up.
It's up, Nancy.
It's up now? Okay, thanks. So I don't expect you to be able to read this map, but what I want to point out is that the dotted lines on the map, so you see them here, 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 all the way over here and here and here and here and here, all over different parts of town. These are proposed trails. Sheep Mountain is one of these proposed trails, and it certainly was not a priority of OSAC this year. So you've gotten a lot of comments about Sheep Mountains in the post plan, we're not following the post plan, etc. Let me assure you, number 1, we're following the post plan, and number 2, Sheep Mountain is not or has never been a priority in the post plan. So with that, I'm certainly happy, and I know Mike is too, happy to take any questions that you may have or comments. We really appreciate council's support. I know Denise said now's a good time to ask council for what OSAC needs from council. I'll just say that we're grateful for your continued support. We're grateful for Judith Chandler and what she brings to our meetings, that's for sure, her reports. And what we need from council is, yeah, your continued support, a heads up. If you see anything that involves OSAC in any way, we would certainly like a heads up to know about it ourselves. And we are gonna need your support in the future when it comes to connecting up with Colorado Springs with our open space at Black Canyon, with the Waldo Canyon complex and some of those kinds of things. But other than that, we will have probably a memorial bench policy to you in the next month or so. And we just continue to look for, by the way, if you see property that you think OSAC ought to take a look at, we're always interested in that as well. So thank you very much. And we're happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Nancy. Council, I would suggest that perhaps we email our questions to Denise and let her filter those back to Nancy. If there's no objections, I would like to do that in the interest of keeping up with the agenda so we can get to the executive material that we really need to address. Are there any objections to that?
Should we bring
Sorry,
OSAC
yeah.
back to another work session so that we can have a conversation?
I think OSAC would be willing to do that.
Absolutely.
Either
Happy to.
that or give us enough time when you come back in April so that we can address some questions and answers, because I don't like that one-way email thing. I like the idea of a conversation.
I agree.
Yeah, I
I do too,
understand, yeah.
Julie.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank
But
you
if-
for
if
your
council-
work, you guys. Oh, my goodness.
Yes, thank you very much.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
great. Nancy, Michael, thank you very much. We'll talk to you later.
Thank-
Great. Thank you, council. I appreciate your understanding. The third item for the work session, consideration and direction regarding a media relations policy. This will be presented by Alex. So Judy, if you could bring Alex over. Alex, you have the floor.
All right, Mayor Graham, City Council. It's good to see everybody. I'm going to share my screen and start presenting in the interest of time. Can everybody see that well? Fabulous.
Yes.
So as Mayor Graham just stated, this is just a brief presentation on media relations policies. And for those of you who don't know me, my name's Alex Treffry. I'm the Public Information and Engagement Officer for the City of Manitou Springs. So firstly, let's just go over the purpose. The purpose of this presentation is to explain the importance of having such policies and also to detail what's within the policies. So the importance of these policies is mainly to ensure, first and foremost, that we're truthful. We have a singular source of information, we're coordinating planned responses, and we're providing sound and impactful reasoning, otherwise known as the why, which is the most important part of, well, everything we do, but also our statements. And so within our policy, sorry, I heard a little bit of reverb there. Within our policy, yeah, I'm at a high level. Mainly what it entails is that any media inquiries received by city staff, city officials, or other personnel of the city will be immediately referred to myself, the Public Information Officer, and that I will make every effort to meet media deadlines. It's a very fast-paced job that the media works, and it takes a lot of effort to meet those, but it consistently gets done. And so also within that is that when someone's contacted by myself for information regarding a media inquiry, that staff member responds with detailed and timely information, and that's also just to meet those deadlines. Also, that all responses and communication to the media is reviewed by myself, and that elected officials will be kept updated with all communication given to the media via press releases or statements to inquiries. And so city spokespersons mainly are the city administrator or their designated PIO, the deputy city administrator, the mayor, city council members, the city attorney, department directors, the police chief or their designated PIO, the fire chief or their designated PIO, or city employees with an expertise on a specific issue. And there's a wide range of, why one of these people would be talking to the media and be that spokesperson. But that's a pretty fairly encompassing list. Also within the policies are expectations for the media for us. And so that would be a same-day response. That may, though, include, at this time, we do not have an answer to your request, but we will continue pursuit. Also, some inquiries may take longer than a day, whether that be due to interdepartmental research, significant research in a specific area, or just complex coordination to begin with. And that sort of leads us into the next point, in that some interview requests may not be fulfilled same day due to our busy schedules, things like that. But all attempts to meet interview deadlines will be made. Also, it mentions litigation and personnel issues, and it states that as a matter of general practice, the City of Manitou Springs and departments therein do not discuss litigation and/or personnel related information. Also, and very importantly, we have personal points of view. And so that's that all members of the city have the right to express their personal points of view to the media. However, though, that personal point of view may conflict with the City of Manitou Springs' official position. And so whenever an employee, council member, or other representative of the city communicates with the media, they may not use the official City of Manitou Springs stationery. And they must state that with forthcoming statements are not official city positions, but rather personal points of view. Additionally, and similarly, if posting to social media, you shouldn't identify as a City of Manitou Springs employee, council member, or other city representative when posting those personal points of view regarding matters of public concern. For crisis and emergency issues, that procedure is laid out in the emergency operations plan, and it says verbatim that the public needs timely and accurate information for protection of life and property during response to and recovery from a disaster or emergency situation. The incident commander has lead responsibility as the official spokesperson for city actions, and I will note that most likely the incident commander is going to be so busy responding to the incident that they'll designate someone as well. Also, for the social media policy, this is, if you could put it into one sentence, it would be a policy to mitigate the effects of trolling on social media. It allows the city to hide comments that use slurs, are off topic, etc. Hiding comments is in line with records retention through our archiving software, Archive Social. It's a fabulous software that does a great job of capturing anything on our social media because it is all public record. Also, many other municipalities have social media policies, and these are posted on social media pages. The social media policy that you see within the media relations policy is almost verbatim to El Paso County's social media policy. Additionally, I just wanted to confirm for all of you that all of these policies are in line with the Code of Conduct for City Council that were recently passed in October 6th of 2020. And it states that council members can be contacted by the media, mainly to never go off record, because it just takes one bad experience for things to go downhill, and that words that aren't said cannot be quoted, which is a great statement in and of itself. Also stating that the mayor is the official spokesperson for city position, and also just to choose your words carefully. And so my recommendation is to approve the media relations policies per resolution at a future regular session. And then if the mayor wishes, we can go to questions. I'll stop sharing my screen.
Yeah, I think we have, that presentation didn't take as long as we thought. So we do have a little time if there are questions that council members have. This would be a good time here. I would suggest that we not take more than 10 minutes. Okay. Sorry, Julie, did I see your hand up?
Oh, yes, I have a quickie for Alex. So there was just a mention by the OSAC folks that they would hope that you would help them screen out any information about OSAC. Is that something you already, is there like a computer program that you have set up where that'll just notify you if OSAC appears in the media somewhere?
Mainly that's just, I know you get my endless emails, the Manitou and the media. That would just be me reading those articles, and I'd be happy to email them and let them know, you know, the Gazette mentioned this and so on and so forth. But yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great idea.
That's all I have.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. All right. I don't see any.
Judith
additional-
has her hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry, Judith. Okay, Judith.
Appreciate this policy discussion. It's very timely. I just want to put it out there that in any good policy, it would be good to have something that every once in a while the city, even though it has great intentions, may not get it right. And I think that it would be great to have in the policy, if there's ever a time that the city puts out a statement that turns out to be, factually incorrect, what the city will immediately do, what steps it will take to rectify any unconscious, but unfactual information that might come out from the city's end.
Okay, thank you. Julie?
And just real quick, I just wanted to say, Mayor, I think this is a really timely, important conversation for another time when we have the time to look into it so that we can figure out if there's a way, and maybe Alex can help us since he's been looking at other cities' policies, to see if there's a way that council can be assured, at least on certain hot topics, that we get the press release written down and approved by council before the meeting ends, so that we don't wake up the next day and find that, that's not exactly the way we were hoping that council's position would be portrayed. And so maybe that's the way to solve some of the problems, concerns that have come up over time. But there's some kind of discussion on how, yeah, but I realize not today, but I think it's really important we look into that.
Okay, so noted. Guess that'll be something we do in the future. Okay. Right, council, if you have no objections, I'd suggest we go ahead and move on. It appears that we'll have two items for executive session. And the first one we can do without, we'll do without Mr. Churchill and his attorney. So we can go ahead and push on. I would suggest then if there's anyone who has council correspondence items to bring them up now. Anyone? Okay, thank you. In that case, let's move on to the city administrator's report. Mr. Cheney.
Yes, just a couple items. Public Works Department and Park and Rec will be moving into their facility tomorrow, so that's exciting for them. We received official Tree City USA letter today with a press release. So we are official Tree City USA, and we're in the process of interviewing 6 candidates for the Park and Recreation Director position. And hopefully we'll have a candidate picked out by next week. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Cheney. Denise?
I don't have anything tonight. Thank you.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, with that, excuse me? Oh, Susan, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to take a quick moment to say that I got a tour of Public Works probably about a week or two ago, and when they have their open houses, I encourage everyone to go up there. The whole staff, and certainly Jeff Jones, has done an amazing job with the budget he had. I think you're just going to be blown away with that facility, and it's a tremendous improvement. And I just wanted to give a shout out to all of them and let you all know to get up there.
Okay, great. Sounds like maybe we ought to have a little field trip up there as a council.
We will be having an open house for the entire community and for council. We just don't have a date set yet. So we are working on that, and it should be posted in the next couple of weeks.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay. With that, if there's no objections, we will adjourn from the work session and enter into a special session. Well, I would say we'll take a break. I would suggest that we go ahead and authorize the executive session, and then while we leave Zoom, we take a 10-minute break then. Would that be agreeable?
Do we have to move to go into executive session and then identify the nature of the executive session and then approve it and then have a second and then?
Yeah.
I think we have to
We
do all
will.
that.
Well, we just a question really of when we want to take our break.
Oh,
So what I'd like to do is go ahead and get the agenda approved and get the motion to enter executive session, take a break. That gives the technical folks a chance to make the transition. Okay. All right, so I'd like to call to order this special session, the Manchester Springs City Council, March 23rd, 2021. Judy, would you call the roll, please?
Council members Judith Chandler,
Present.
John Chada,
Here.
Julie Wolf,
here.
Susan Wolbrook,
Here.
Steve Bremner,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Nancy Fortune. The mayor passes on, so.
There you go. Present.
And Mayor John Graham.
Present.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so basically the intent of this special session is to enable us to get into an executive session. I think council members have all seen the agenda. So if we would, if someone would like to make a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll go ahead and move to approve the executive session agenda items J1 and 2. Do I need to read them verbatim, Mayor?
Yes, or I can read them if you want.
I'll go ahead and read them. Executive session items J1, an executive session to hold a conference with the city attorney for legal advice pursuant to section 5.1 subsection C of the City of Manitou Springs Home Rule Charter concerning the personnel matter, executive session to follow. And J2, an executive session for a personnel matter regarding an employee or an applicant for employment, unless the employee or applicant requests an open meeting pursuant to section 5.1 subsection A of the City of Manitou Springs Home Rule Charter concerning the employment of Police Chief Brian Churchill.
Thank you. We have a motion. Do we have a second? Oh, excuse me, we also need to add item K.
Oh,
Council
I'm
Chairman, would
sorry.
you read-
I thought that we were coming out of executive session for K, but I will add that K1 under business, consideration and potential action concerning matters addressed in the prior executive session.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Can we have a motion and a second? Okay, all in favor, say aye and raise your hand. Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Okay. Motion passes unanimously. Okay, thank you. So let's take a 10-minute break and let the technical people switch over, and then we'll come back into executive session. 10 minutes.